2022 STEM Summit. My name is Rachel Wonderscheid. I am the new director of the Montana Afterschool Alliance. Together with the Science and Math Resource Center at MSU, we have put together this STEM Summit. So again, I'm Rachel. I'm with the Montana Afterschool Alliance. We are a statewide organization and we do outreach, resource providing, and training for all of the out of school time programs across the state. So that's such a wide variety of programs, really any program that works with youth, not during the school day. But we try to create partnerships and collaborations around programs that have similar interests and who really care about advancing programs for youth, and especially programs in STEM. The history of the STEM Summit is that the first one was held in 2017 and then 2019. They were wonderful events. From what I hear, I was not around. This is my first event. I'm quite excited. But the programs were in person, in Bozeman, lots of attendance. And when we were planning this, it was still the winter. So we were feeling like it would be safest to just do this virtually this time and hope to get back to being in person next year. But really the purpose of the summit is to kind of try to figure out how we can bring more STEM to the kids in Montana around the state in the various communities, but also to try to bridge the folks that are doing work in the industry level and in nonprofits, in schools, at universities, so that they can have a chance to talk together to realize where they overlap and what work they can do to collaborate together. So that is the purpose of the STEM Summit. The focus of this year's STEM Summit is access to STEM. And so really access can mean a lot of things. That can mean not having right transportation. It could mean not having programs or activities that are easily accessible for all folks with all abilities. And also we're trying to think a little bit more about who we might be leaving out of the STEM learning and who we need to start to bring in. So that can be a variety of different folks. And we want you to think about that throughout the first part of this program while we're listening to our speaker and to our youth panel. And then in the breakout section, try to think about how we can address that together. Again, our organization and the Science and Math Resource Center do a lot of training around the state, and we want to take ideas from this summit to inform our training for the next year. I'd like first to thank all of our sponsors. There's a lot of people who made this happen today, but the sponsors specifically are the MSU College of Education, Health and Human Development, Gear Up, the Million Girls Moonshot Program, the Montana NSF EPSCoR Grant, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, the Overdeck Family Foundation. And I also really want to thank two organizations that have partnered with us to make today's event possible. That's the MAPS program, Montana Media Arts Program, and specifically Jana Williams, who's going to be helping with facilitating our youth panel and also one of our breakout sessions. And then also the Afterschool Alliance, which is a national organization that does incredible work around the country for programs like ours. And 3 of their staff members have kindly offered to facilitate our breakout sessions today to add to our staff capacity. Another important thing that I get and I'm excited to share with you all is messages from both of our senators who specifically made some video messages for us today to kick off our STEM Summit. And I'm going to share those videos now.
Future of our state. Senator Steve Daines here, and welcome to the MSU 2022 STEM Summit. As the lone chemical engineer in the United States Senate and a proud Bobcat myself, I know firsthand the critical role that STEM jobs play in the future of our state, our country, and the entire world. We must continue promoting STEM education in our schools and encouraging folks to pursue careers in this important field to ensure the United States maintains its competitive edge around the world, especially against China. And as your voice in the United States Senate, I'll keep working to make sure the United States continues to be a world leader in science and innovation. So enjoy the rest of your summit. Keep up the great work. Go Cats.
Look, as a former teacher and parent, I understand how important STEM education is. We need to make sure that our children have the opportunity to learn during school and after school. And quite honestly, if we're going to solve the problems that we have in this country, whether it's issues around climate change or food production or whatever it may be, STEM education is critically important. So I'm going to work to support, make sure that we have programs like MAA and SMRC to make sure that our after-school programs and STEM education remains a top priority in this country.
So now I would like to introduce Susie Taylor, the director of the Science and Math Resource Center at MSU, and she's going to get us started with our next section of the event.
Great. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Rachel. I'm just going to say a very quick hello because you're about to hear from a fascinating keynote speaker. I'm Susie Taylor. I'm at MSU in Bozeman with the Science Math Resource Center. I'm also part of the Education Outreach and Diversity team for Montana NSF EPSCoR. It is my privilege to introduce to you one of my MSU colleagues, Jovanka Vojic. She is the department head of microbiology and cell biology. She is an outstanding researcher and also an excellent human being. And we're going to turn it over to Jovanka to introduce our keynote speaker today. I will say we're on a tight timeline today. I'm not sure that we'll have time for questions for our speaker. However, if you do have questions and you want to post those in the chat, I will do my very best to keep track of those. And if we have a little bit of time, we'll do them at the end. If not, we can follow up later. So thank you. And let's turn it over to Jovanka.
Thank you very much, Susie. And this is my absolute pleasure. Hello, Trishina, and hello to everybody else to introduce Trishina Kill's Pretty Enemy. And Trishina and I go kind of way back now. I was her academic advisor when she was an undergraduate. I had her as a student in my medical bacteriology class. And then Trish now is with me as a master's student as she pursues her love of STEM fields. And I'll just give you a little bit of background of Trish. I've kind of narrowed down a few points because Susie has told me, got to keep this pretty short, but Trish made a huge effort throughout her career at MSU and actually all of her academic career to seek out research opportunities. This started when she was at Little Bighorn College and she studied E. coli, which impacted her reservation. And this is also a big theme of Trish, to give back. She never forgets her roots and never forgets the struggles she's had to try to make it better on the next generation coming up. She made this research a priority, not only at Little Bighorn when she came to MSU, she right away found a lab where she studied Clostridium difficile. She won multiple awards during that time. She had the Embry Fellowship, the wonderful McNair. I see Shelley Hogan on here. The wonderful McNair program Trish was a part of. And most students right then would be like, I've done my research. I'm gonna, kind of whatever, take it easy. Not Trish. She sought out more opportunities. She went to the University of Utah in the Native American Research Internship Program through their, what they call NARI program. And she did research on congenital heart defects. They loved her so much, they tried to recruit her for a PhD down there. But Trish is still kind of deciding whether she wants to go PhD or MD. And so she hasn't quite taken them up on that offer. Following that, she was awarded a talk at SACNAS for that wonderful work she did with NARI. Following that, she received an internship at Harvard to do research. Unbelievable resume for an undergraduate student. And I think you'll find it even more inspiring when you hear her story of how she got to this stage in her career. I will highlight one other thing. Trish never, I said this at the beginning, she never forgets to give back. She was an Empower peer mentor since 2014. She's been a SPOT mentor, which is the Space Public Outreach Team for NASA, for several years as well, always looking for opportunities to do outreach. During the COVID outbreak, Trish did outreach to the schools to have them understand the vaccine, understand the pathogenesis of the virus, and she went to the K-12 schools to do that. She just is constantly giving. Even though she has so much on her own plate, Trish always has time for others, and she always makes time for the next generation. And she's a really super inspiring young scientist, and it has been absolutely my honor to work with Trish. So with that, I will turn it over. And Trish, you know I have to go. I feel so terrible about that, but I have heard her speak before. You guys will enjoy this. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you, Trish.
Aw, thank you, Ivanka. Love you so much. I'm so thankful you're in my life. Almost teared up. You know, this academic journey has been something else, you know, and I couldn't have done it without the help of everybody. You know, I have my mentors from NARI, Dr. Angie Serrano, she's from Boston. I see Judith Simcox, she was a postdoc at Salt Lake City, Utah. She's here to support me. She's now at Wisconsin-Madison. Can't forget Catherine Haller from Harvard. You know, when I was there, they actually funded me and my two children to go to Harvard, paid for our flights, found us housing. And, you know, it's wonderful people like these that go that extra mile. Is, you know, this isn't a one-man process. It's a community-based process. And, you know, that's kind of my story. I'm Indigenous and just so thankful to be here. So to start out, so my name is Trishina Kills Pretty Enemy. My Crow Indian name given to me by my aunt, my late aunt who passed away, is Ushit Bicha. So in English terms, that translates to Pretty Yellowhammer Woman. My clan is the Greasy Mouth clan, and I'm a child of the Whistling Water clan. So I'm an enrolled member of the Crow Reservation, and I'm also part Hunkpapa Lakota from the Standing Rock Reservation. Hence my my awesome last name, Kills Pretty Enemy. I always joke and say I'm going to be the future Dr. Kills. So life for me hasn't always been easy. I'm so thankful for my mom and my dad. My mom's also on here right now. My dad's in heaven. And one of the biggest things they always instilled in me was to get my education, to go as far as I go and to have no regrets. And so I grew up in Pryor, Montana. That's on the Crow Reservation. And has a population of about 539 people. Very, very small town. It's a little bit by Billings, Montana. And so their dream was always to help us with that foundation. So they actually sent us off the reservation, and I attended a Catholic school for a while there. And so it was difficult. I was the only Native person out of a few other Natives at that school, and I never felt a part of. And so I always base myself on my skin color. Am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? You know, I didn't have the best car. You know, my parents worked pretty hard. And looking back, I was going to school next to children whose mothers and fathers were lawyers and doctors. And I didn't realize that till years later. But one thing I've always loved was science. So I'm one of 5 kids. I'm one of the youngest. I have a younger brother. But my oldest sister, she's 14 years older than me. So when I was starting out in kindergarten, she was starting out college, and she went to University of North Dakota to get her degree in medical laboratory science. So naturally, when she came back for Christmas, she brought me a microscope, toy microscope. Did not know what that was or anything. And so my dad was diabetic. And so he had a lancet, and my sister pricked her finger, and we were able to look at it under a microscope. And for me, as a little 5 or 6 year old, that was fascinating, infatuating. I never knew that, the life around us that we see visually, there's a small world, just waiting to be explored. And so I also, where I was located was more towards the mountains, the country area. And so I spent a lot of my summers swimming in the creeks, running around in the hills, and with my little microscope, I think I went through 4 of them, looking at leaves and looking at bugs and, looking at, me and my dad would watch the Discovery Channel a lot. I would hog the TV and be like, this TV is reserved on Saturday for the woolly mammoth showing, everyone. And I would put a little note on there to do that stuff. And more so, my dad, a big part of my story, we would go outside and just look at the stars. Best place in Pryor is to look at the outside world at night. Loved it. I always thought I would be a physics person, but my life led me to microbiology. So jumping forward to high school, I still kind of had that not feeling a part of. I had low self-esteem and life was hard for me. I always compared my insides to other people's outsides, if that made sense. People seems like they got it. They know what's going on, they get all these good grades and here I am. I know I'm smart. People tell me I'm smart. And so I graduated 8th grade in Pryor, Montana, and I actually chose to go to high school at Hardin, Montana. So I mentioned before, it was hard to be in an all-white school. And so moving back to the reservation, finishing out school there, I love being around natives. I love being around my own people. And so I chose Hardin because it had that balance of that. There is natives and there's also white people. And I knew I would get a decent education if I went to school there. And so I started that, with teachers. They thought I would be valedictorian and man, she's going to do something. Even at that young age, people seen something in me that I never seen in myself. But, as is with other stories I've heard, I chose the friend's life. I love my friends. I love that scene and education and kind of put that on the back burner. But it wasn't until my sophomore year that I had an awesome biology teacher named Mr. Takis. I believe he's retired now. I always tell him about my story. He's always in my story. So one of these days I need to go track him down and thank him for inspiring me. So in that class, we took biology. Same thing again. We talked about the electron transport system. And while everyone was like, oh, groaning, I was that one little kid like, I like this. This is really weird. I don't get it, but I get it. And so the molecular world was like a foreign language that I wanted to learn. And at that time in my life, my dad's health really started to decline. He had autoimmune disease of the liver, he had diabetes, and he struggled with heart disease as well. And so a lot of the times we would travel to Denver, Colorado, just to receive his care, get the adequate care he needed. And that was hard for us. We didn't always have a lot of money, but we'd all pile in our car to be there for my dad. And that was devastating. It was really hard for me. And so at that time, I was like, I like biology. I want to be a part of the solution someday. I don't know what biomedical research means, but I think I want to pursue that. And so finished up high school. And like I said, I love my friends too much. So I didn't graduate with the best GPA, barely graduated, in fact, but education was always in that back burner. Someday, I'm going to do it, just not right now. And so I eventually went to Little Bighorn College, and I'm so thankful for that school that we have a community college like that right next door on our reservation. And so I pursued that for a while. I started my first year and it was hard because, like I said, friends, I love my friends, and a big portion of them went to Montana State University, Bozeman. And so I chose to stay at LBHC because I knew that if I followed them, it would not be about classes. So I'm thankful I made that choice. But I was young and I had low self-esteem, and you know how it is when you're young and trying to find yourself, it's difficult. So I ended up dropping out. My grandmother passed away my last semester, and I used that as excuse to quit school at Little Bighorn College. But eventually, you know, I got the help I needed. I sought help. I got the help I needed and started to build my spiritual life, getting connected to my Indigenous roots and who I am, and finding all of those good qualities about myself. And school was still there. And within that time, I had my first son in 2011. But before that, I went back to Little Bighorn College, and my very first advisor, Sarah Plagemeyer, she was there. And she was like, hey, I have this research opportunity. Do you want to apply for it? And I was like, you want me to apply for that, a research opportunity? I don't know. And, you know, I'm always at this, I don't know, I'm afraid, but all right, I'll try it. And so I applied, and of course she gave me that internship, and it was amazing. So we studied the E. coli rates within our Crow reservation, and we tied it into our cultural knowledge, how this is important for our daily Crow lives. We use water for our ceremonies, for the sweat lodge, for the sun dance. It's so important. And so it was a really big eye opener to combine Western science with our native knowledge. And so from there, my research and my interest in research sparked. And so, all right, so what am I going to do after this? So I started researching Montana State University, and someone told me about a bridges program where they bridge tribal colleges to higher universities. Same thing again. I'm not sure if I'm good enough or if I'm going to get accepted, and I got accepted. And so at that time, I had my second son, and we moved ourselves from Crow to MSU Bozeman. And from there, that's when I got plugged in with Dr. Seth Walk, researching Clostridium difficile infection. And man, that blew my mind again, because Little Bighorn College, we don't have a lot of resources. We had to use one pipette and use that same, you know, process of burning, sterilizing, and we would have over 100 plates. But over here, you know, they had so much money. I was like, wow, you can throw your pipettes just like that and get another one and use it. They had things like the anaerobic chamber and just so many more like instruments that we could use for our research. And that was fascinating, and I loved it, and I kept doing it. And so I did that summer program, and the following fall is when I transitioned to Montana State University. I declared my major as microbiology, and it was hard. So I did all of my extra credits at Little Bighorn College, got my math out of the way, my stats out of the way. And so there wasn't really, I had to jump into the hardcore classes. And so I'm a Native American woman coming from a place that doesn't have the best education quality as some other people. You throw me to a place I've known, all my relatives, all my cousins, all my brothers and my sisters, and transitioning into Bozeman, even though it's just a few hours away, was a big culture shock. I felt really alone. It was hard. And that same feeling of feeling apartness came again. And my advisor at that time, she had my classes as chemistry 1, the upper level chemistry, physics, and anatomy and physiology. That was hard. And so coming from Little Bighorn College to this big university was a very big transition for me, because I knew I was smart. People told me so. I got decent grades at Little Bighorn College, got my GPA up, but coming here to a whole different facility with whole different terms and, you know, just hard. It was difficult. And to make it worse, my beloved dad passed away my first semester, and that was devastating. And a few weeks before he passed away, I would make trips to Billings to go see him at Billings Clinic. And the week before he passed away, we knew his time was coming, and that was so hard for me. I remember I was behind his bed because I didn't want him to see my tears. And the nurse, she was talking to me, and I think she was doing that to like get my mind off of things. And I was like, yeah, I just started school at Montana State University. I'm getting my degree in microbiology. And I happened to look down and my dad just had the biggest glowing smile on his face. And so when it was his time to go home, I just hold that to my heart. And so I took a little bit of time off and I came back and I was like, I'm going to finish this semester. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to do it for my dad. This is the whole reason why I'm doing this process, because I want to be a part of the solution. And when he was sick, I had a feeling of feeling so helpless. I had this very strong desire to keep pursuing a doctorate, whether it be in medicine or whether it be in academia, or both is my goal. And so I kept going. And it's hard, I had a professor that time in chemistry who isn't a really good professor, came back 2 weeks later, and I told him my dad passed away. And he's like, oh, while you're late on your homework, I'll give you half points if you turn it in. You still have to take the exam next Monday, though. This was on a Thursday. So I had to deal with a lot of professors that, didn't understand. And something like that, is just unacceptable. But there's amazing, beautiful people that did help me. At that time, I met Dr. Shelley Hogan, and they told me to apply to be a McNair Scholar. Again, didn't think I had what it took. And after my dad passed away, I didn't hear back from the McNair program. So I think I called her and I was like, hey, I'm just checking on my application. She's like, oh, we picked you. I'm like, what? Oh my gosh. So I was like so happy. And the first person I wanted to call was my dad, and so I had gratitude and I also had sadness, but that was good. I knew he was up there smiling down on me. And so I wish I could say that was my last struggle, but it was not. And so in the course of getting my bachelor degree in microbiology, each consecutive semester after that, I lost a family member. And it was either due to alcoholism, it was due to diabetes, it was due to heart disease. Each semester after that, I was like, man, I'm never going to get a break from this, but I had that drive, I had that ambition. It's through support services, like just applying myself, I don't know where I learned this, but making those connections, talking to my peers, talking to my professors, because I was a McNair Scholar, but I also got involved with INBRE. INBRE is one place that funded my research. I got involved with the Empower program. I was a TRIO Scholar, McNair Scholar. I got a part of ACES, the American Indian into Science and Engineering Society, and I eventually became their vice president. And all of these tools I learned from learning to apply myself, learning to reach out. And in the years that I've been here and working with other students, not everyone has that. So that's one of the biggest things I try to tell people, is to try advocate for yourself. And what I learned in Utah from Dr. Angie Serrano was to be resourceful. That's one of the biggest things she taught me. And I'm so thankful for that mentorship. So moving on, by the time I hit my junior year of college, my GPA wasn't great. That first semester that my dad passed away, it was hard. And I also had other professors when I had someone pass away that just didn't understand that I'm Native. I come from a family of 5, but my mother has like 7 brothers and sisters. My dad has 7 or 8 brothers and sisters as well. Alone, I have like 80 something first cousins. Family and community is a big part of my life, and I love each and every one of them. And when something happens, we come together. That's what we do. So a lot of these funerals and a lot of these calls about the hospital, I would do my best to try to be there for them. And it affected my grades a lot. So by the time I was a junior, I remember having a talk with my advisor, and she said that you are never going to get into any of these programs that you apply for because of your low GPA. But thankful, I didn't go to her. I had all these other wonderful programs. Like, what? Why would she say that to you? I'll personally write your letter of recommendation. And that was Ivanka when I first met her. And so the first internship that I applied to and got accepted to was the Native American Research Internship in Salt Lake City, Utah. That was one, again, thought I wouldn't get into, and I did. And it was an amazing experience. I got to be with a cohort of other Native American students like myself all across the US, whose one goal and purpose in mind is to help our people, whether it be in medicine or whether it be in research. And it was through there that I got really good mentorship by Dr. Joseph H. Yos and Angie Serrano. And I experienced a great lab culture. I had research and it was difficult. I was there at the weekends, but that's what it takes. I got to present my research at a research conference. I got to meet, and in that process, I got to meet the first Navajo woman surgeon, Dr. Lori Arvizo. And she, inspiring talks like that, identified. And I believed in myself through that program that I can be a doctor. I can do this. I met the MD PhD program coordinator. Man, MD PhD, that's like my dream blow out of I don't know if I can do that, but that's where I got that spark of interest. And following that, my children and their dad, we had a falling out. It just wasn't working and we were already on mushy ground. I choose the sober life and he chose the other life. And that's basically why we didn't work. So I came back to an empty house and that was heartbreaking. One of the biggest heartbreaks I've ever had to go through besides my dad. And so I came home to an empty house and thankful for my mother. She's a big part of my story. She came and lived with me. She helped me with my kids, helped me to get back on my feet. And then through the process of being the vice president for ACES, I had friends that eventually graduated from MSU and they went to Harvard. And you're like, man, you're amazing. You need to apply for this internship at Harvard. I'm like, Harvard? Did you see my GPA? I'm like, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Apply, we'll help you. And that's how I met Catherine Holler. And then within that time to boot, that's when I got that scholarship for to present at the SACNAS conference in 2017. I also got to be the head women dancer. And through that process, the ACES magazine, Winds of Change, reached out to MSU. They're looking for a Native to tell their story. Wow, that was me. Sent them my personal statement. They called me back. We love your story so much. We want you to be on the cover. We think you'll inspire lots of people. So here I am crying, brokenhearted. Okay, if it will help someone else. And applied for Harvard and I got in that following year. And that was phenomenal. Just being in a research lab, having all these tools in my toolkit, learning to be resourceful, learning to try to not ask for too much help because I've had these research goals. And so I feel like I really thrived at Harvard and just was able to be successful in my work. And so I did that process. I applied and they were able to fund my 2 children, my mom and my niece. It was an amazing experience. And along the way, the hardships of being Native, I had to really work hard. I really had to fight that voice that I'm not good enough. I had to utilize tutoring. I had to learn about that. I had to learn how to study. And eventually, at the end of my semester program, my GPA got better. I started to stay within the B range. And so upon that, worried about my undergraduate GPA, that's when Ivanka suggested to do a master's program. And so that's what I did. And currently doing right now, I'll be finishing up in fall. And so with that, I know there's a variety of people here. So if you want to learn more about my story, you can always email me. If you can put my email in the chat, whoever wants to reach out, I'm more than happy to talk with you. And so being what Ivanka said, being that person, that advocate for other people is very near and dear to my heart. So she mentioned that I am the Space Public Outreach Team Manager currently. This is my last semester. And so one of the things that I wanted to do before I leave was to do outreach to the Crow Reservation. And so that's where I was on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'm really tired, but I'm so glad I went because I got to tell this story over and over to my community. I got to reach out to junior high students, to high school students, And some of them were just like me, like, man, I'm not doing too good. It's going to take me 2 more years to get my high school degrees. I'm like, it's all right. I barely graduated high school, not because I was dumb or anything, but I didn't apply. I was crazy. I was able to identify with those kids. And one of the biggest impacts that I realized, especially being in high school and younger, was the teachers. I talked about Mr. Takis, and I met amazing science teacher at Pryor, Montana. His name is Mr. Roush, Lauren Roush. And at Lodgegrass High School, I met another amazing teacher named Mr. Martin. Those guys have a heart of gold, and my heart goes out to education people that are like that. These schools are hard. Like, kids were cursing, and I was like, oh, that's where I learned my cursing. And kids are like not listening and paying attention, and I told my story, and I never know who I'm going to reach, but I try to pray and meditate, and I smudge before this trip. If I can at least reach a few kids who are like me, maybe I have a chance. Maybe, we all have a chance to make our world better, to promote education, that there's a better life out there. And I didn't see the children, but I see Nora's on here. She was there. She works with outreach here at Montana State University. So what we did is we got to light rockets and build rockets with these kids and launch them off. And, just being cool with them, talking the res talk. And, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm one of your aunties. I know who your parents are. And I got them all excited. I was like, whoever can catch their rocket when we launch it off, I'll give you $5. Like, oh, all right. And so, just engaging with that community, being able to talk to them like how we would in everyday life, not judging them. And so I'm so thankful for that. And when I was ACE's vice president, I worked with a lot of engineering students. A lot of my friends have already graduated, but I remember like big companies like Boeing would always make contact with us. We want to buy your kids lunch. We want to interact with them, come to the college. Can you promote this for us? And so I make flyers, and I'm thankful for programs like that come to our school to specifically talk to natives. And it's through those programs, I know that a lot of them, they have jobs now. And so outreach is where it's at. Outreach, outreach, outreach. If we can reach the middle school, if we can reach junior high. Because when I was talking to Mr. Martin at Lodgegrass, he's like, man, I'm so thankful you guys are here. No one ever comes out to us. And I'm like, really? No one comes out to you? He's like, yes. So we're really honored to have you guys here, because a lot of these kids, they'll never see outside of Lodgegrass. And when I talked to the teacher at Pryor, he said, yep, I see some of these kids up from 7th grade until they graduate high school. And I see a lot of them, they start to have kids right away, and they kind of have that lifestyle. And so outreach, outreach, outreach is where it's at. And I think
Hey, Trishina, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Kind of down to our last couple minutes. I have the worst job in the world of having to interrupt you. I'm really sorry.
It's cool. Well, there you have it. I think I'm done.
Well, you still have a couple minutes to wrap up. Our middle and high school kids are coming into the room. So if you have any last words of advice, maybe for our young people or for all the not young people on the line, we'll give you 2 or 3 more minutes, and then we'll start our youth panel. Thank you.
So what I was telling the children at Lodgegrass and Pryor was, remember when you feel like you can't do this. Remember when you feel like you're not smart enough. Remember when you do go to college and you feel like you're the only other Indian. Remember that you are amazing. When you talked about the space science, I said, remember who you are. You are indigenous. You are Abzaliga. Whatever tribe you are, our ancestors have been here for thousands and thousands of years. And a lot of the Western science that we learn today is not new. We've been studying the stars. It was very important for us. Some tribes believe that stars talk to each other. And I believe that some research that is ongoing today, you know, it's starting to prove some of what we already know. So you are smart, you are amazing. And if you ever think that, you know, if you think you failed the test or you have to repeat a grade, you know, keep putting one foot in front of the other. You are smart and just as capable. And if I can do it, you can do it.
Trishina,
Oh,
that
and
was
reach out,
awesome.
reach out too. Always reach out. Make those connections. That's a big part of it too. And no question is a dumb question. That's why we're here. Oh, Siri's talking to me. So that's all.
I love it. Thank you. And I don't know if you can see the chat, but you're seeing a lot of kudos there. Wonderful presentation. You're amazing. I see outreach, outreach, outreach. Your message got through to our audience. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really bummed we don't have more time to spend with you and to do some questions, but we do have our young people coming in. We have a panel of middle schoolers and high schoolers from different parts of the state. So I think we're just going to transition over to there. Trishina's email address is in the chat. So please do follow up with her or with us organizers and we connect too. I'm going to give a round of applause. Thank you so much. Okay, so next we're going to turn it over to Jana Williams. She is with the MAPS Media Institute. She's their communications and marketing director. She'll tell you a little bit about the MAPS Media Institute, and she will be the moderator for our youth panel. I know you're going to love this part. It's always so great for us who are doing this work in STEM to really be grounded in the voices of these young people. I know you're going to love this part, and I'm going to turn it over to Jana now.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Susie. So as Susie said, my name is Jana Williams. I'm the Communications Marketing Director for MAPS Media Institute. Created in 2004 and now headquartered out of Hamilton and Helena, Montana. MAPS Media Institute, originally MAPS was the acronym for Media Arts in the Public Schools, is a Montana nonprofit providing a free of charge professional media arts instruction for 8th through 12th graders across the state of Montana. So when you hear STEAM, we're the A, we're the arts. We bring that part to the STEM. We add the integral A. So I am just going to dive in here. I think we have all of our students. I see we have Kelly, Eliana, Tavis, Michaela, and Cole. I'm looking for you in all of your boxes. I think I see all of you there. So if we could just start, I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. And could you just say your name and then your school and maybe one cool thing about science, technology, engineering, art, or math. Sound good for everyone? So let's start with Callie. Callie, you're my first one on the list, for better or worse.
Perfect, thank you. So my name is Callie Menard and I'm from White Sulphur Springs. And I'm really interested in different sorts of science and like cooking and baking and stuff like that.
Do you watch the Great British Baking Show?
A little bit, yeah.
Awesome. I happen to love it. If you guys can't tell, I got really excited there. Great. Thank you, Callie. Next, we're going to go to Eliana. And absolutely beautiful name. I hope I said it correctly. I've been saying it over and over again. Same thing. If you could introduce yourself, school, and something fun that you like about science, tech, engineering, arts, or math.
Thank you. My name is Eliana, and I'm from Chief Joseph Middle School in Bozeman. And I am really interested in science and math.
Awesome. Very cool. Any specific kind of science or math?
I like hydraulics and engineering, like the architecture.
Very, very cool. That's very cool. I don't know if you guys can turn your cameras on. I can see both of your names. I know everybody would love to see your faces. That's the worst and best part of the Zoom. So feel free. Hi, Callie. There we go. Awesome. Yeah, faces are great. Faces and places. All right. So next, I'm going to move on to Tavis. Tavis, could you introduce yourself, school, and your favorite part of STEM?
Hello, thank you. My name is Tavis Daly, and I'm from Chief Joseph Middle School in Bozeman. And I'm interested in probably genes and DNA and science.
That is awesome. What do you think makes you excited about those most?
I really don't know. I just kind of like the way that they teach it, and it's
Well,
interesting.
the cool part is at your age, you don't have to know. As long as you're interested in it, you just keep going. And next we have Michaela. Oops, where are you?
Okay, there we
Name,
go.
school, and favorite part of STEM.
Hi, so I'm Michaela. I'm homeschooled up in Kalispell, and I've been part of an after-school program called Code Girls United for 6 years now, where we can make apps and compete and that kind of thing.
Very, very cool. Wow, we have a really nice cross section here. This is great. And then last but not least, we have Cole. And Cole, again, just name, school, and STEM preference, or STEAM preference rather.
Well, I'm Cole Fisher. I go to Chief Joseph Middle School, and I really like doing algebra and math and stuff.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to dive into some questions. So I'm going to throw out our first question here, and any one of you can start to answer it if you feel like you have a good answer for that. Sorry, there's nailing going on literally right behind my head, and it just started just now. It's like perfectly timed. So in one sentence, can you sum up what you like about STEM programs or classes you have been involved in? Maybe a little expansion on what you just said. Anybody want to field that question?
I think that my favorite part about STEM classes are that you never get to stop learning. Like you just get to continue on your education forever.
Wow, that is an awesome answer. Wonderful answer. Anybody else want to take a little dive into that quick answer?
Yeah, sure. Like I said before, I was part of Code Girls United. I love that it's given me an opportunity to learn more about computer programming and technology through designing and programming actual apps. I've been taking integrated chemistry and physics and pre-calculus this school year, and that's been really cool to learn.
That is absolutely incredible. Wonderful. We have more questions to come here, and we are going to be going until about 2:15. So we have time if somebody else wants to jump on that question. And if you need it repeated, just raise your hand. I can see all of you now where you are in your boxes. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. So question number 2, how did your perspective on STEM education change from elementary school to middle school, or middle school to high school? And what caused that change, do you think?
I'll go first on this one, but I feel like it's definitely changed better because I definitely like middle school STEM, or I guess science, way more than elementary school, because I feel like it's definitely a step up in what we've been being taught and stuff. And it feels a lot more advanced.
That's a great answer. Good to know too. I'm glad that it's progressing as you're progressing. All right, who else has a good answer for that question? And again, I'm happy to repeat it.
I'll go ahead and go. In really early elementary, I remember telling my dad that I wanted to make an app for my tablet. And at the time, I had no idea where to even get started. And so after participating in my program from elementary up until now, my freshman year, I know how to take an app from an idea to a prototype to App Store ready. And this last year, we've even had other companies reach out to us asking them to make apps for their business.
That is so cool. This is great. This is really fun. I get the fun part. This is so much fun. I hope you are all smiling and having as much fun as I am. Who else wants to talk a little bit about those transitions?
I will. In elementary school, it was it's kind of boring. It was really slow and really easy. Science was. And like Cole said, I feel like middle school has stepped it up, and where you actually can engage in it and learn more than just listening.
That's great. Did you feel like it was a little more hands-on? Like you kind of got to, was there anything collaborative about it that made it a little bit better?
Labs in middle school because we didn't really have those in elementary school.
Oh, that is a great addition. Labs, as we heard from our speaker, Trish, they're very important, very important. All right, let's move on to the third question. So describe a time you felt frustrated in a STEM activity. What helped you move beyond your frustration and gave you the ability to complete it successfully? Who's first?
I can answer this one. So I participated in state science fair this year, and my model was about, like, I made a model that dealt with hydraulic pressure and its effect on the model's height. And the first couple times I tried to build it, it didn't really work because I had the where the two popsicle sticks came together, can't think of the right word. They were rubbing up against each other, so it wouldn't like raise, and I had to start completely over. And I was really motivated to keep going because I liked that experiment and I wanted to complete it.
How did you solve that? Like, how many steps did you have until you solved it? And since you just kept going, which is awesome.
Well, since I had to start over, I like literally threw everything away and started completely over. So yeah, that's kind of how
Hey, I feel like everybody on this call would 100% say we've definitely all had to throw away and start over. Even now, as adults, we all do that. That's great. How about another answer? Anyone? Callie, Tavis, Michaela?
Yeah, so I remember in my second year of programming, I was making this little app for a project or something, and I had to generate a random number, and I could not figure out how to do it. I was looking on YouTube for answers. I was looking things up. I asked my dad, who was an engineer, for answers. But finally, with persistence and a lot of time, I was really proud to show it off in class, and it worked. And I learned not to quit after things don't work the first time or even the 17th time, but I'm glad I got it to work.
That's awesome. And I'm just going to drop a little bit of knowledge, and I feel like everybody on this call might empathize with me. But the TI-82 calculator, which I don't know if you guys have ever seen and or heard of and or held, it was about $100 million when I was in 8th grade. Your parents had to take out a second mortgage to get it. It was totally worth it. But you know what it had? It had a random number generator. There you go. Old tech meeting new tech. I love this. This is great. All right. Fourth question. We ready for that? Has there been an adult who has influenced you in STEM? And if so, how? / what advice would you give adults about working with youth in STEM?
So I work at a local bakery. And so I did a school to work program, I think 2 years ago with my boss, Holly, and she taught me so much about baking. And it was just like crazy how much I could learn in such a small amount of time. And I think that to adults, like I would ask silly questions a lot. And she was just like really good about answering my questions that I had. Like whether it was like, why is the cake not rising? And she's like, Hallie, you didn't put eggs in it. Like, what are you talking about? Or whether it was like actually really complex. So I think that just like no question is a silly question, even though like it might seem like a silly question to you.
That is a great takeaway. There is no such thing as a bad question, even if it seems silly in the moment. All right, who else? Who else has had an adult that has helped shape their love of STEM?
Oh, I'll answer this here too then. So when I was in elementary school, we had the after school program, and some lady always came in and had this 3D printing thing for everyone to do. And I feel like that right there was definitely a step up in STEM because I mean, we're 3D printing in elementary school. And I still think it's really cool that we got to do that, and that definitely inspired a lot.
What did you 3D print?
Well, at the time, I 3D printed a bunch of dinosaurs and Minecraft characters and stuff.
Awesome. Do you still have them?
I don't think so.
That's okay. They're somewhere doing good things somewhere. All right. So who else? Anyone else have an adult that Tavis?
Mine would be this year. My science teacher, Miss Bitts, who had to leave. But she in elementary school, I don't know, I guess I didn't really connect with any of my teachers like science wise. But with Miss Bitts, she really helped me like understand it and get to know it and learn to like it a lot. Because before I had really in elementary school pretty much little to none, like no interest in it. But now I am very interested in science, and all thanks to Miss Bitts. And things for other teachers, maybe be like understanding, and maybe don't try and go too fast or too slow. Try and find the right pace for the student.
That's really good advice. That's really good advice, I think, for adults across the board. Any other, actually, let's kind of emphasize the second part of that question. What advice do you guys have for adults and teachers? What do you like, if you could give anyone on this call advice on how to better help you as a young person, what would that be?
Well, mine would continue to my previous statement on maybe not just helping out with older ages, but going on to the younger ages and stuff so that they can get some of the same activities and stuff that the older ages get.
Yeah, so my mom, who is not a math person at all, she's been homeschooling me since kindergarten, where I got ahead in math, and now I'm in pre-calculus. And instead of her giving up and finding someone else to teach me, she'll sit down and work some of the problems herself too. So advice I'd give to adults working with you in STEM is actually work out the problems with them, be participants and not just teachers, if that makes sense.
Wow, that's a big statement. Be participants and not just teachers. I think that's a really good takeaway. Somebody writing this down. This is being recorded, so thank goodness. All right, who else? Eliana, do you have any advice for adults? Not really? I just picked on you because you have the coolest headphones. They make me jealous. I want them. Well, we've got one more question left. We kind of breezed through these a little bit, but I think that we can go back a little bit. I just want to retouch on one thing that we talked about a little bit earlier. So within your experience with, science, tech, engineering, and math, outside of that, or art, in media arts, how that functions, how do you think that those kind of programs help you in other parts of your life? So maybe not so even much so in those areas, but do you feel like they give you kind of problem solving tools that help you in other areas of your life?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, let's do Callie first. Callie, you unmuted first. Go ahead. And then we'll hit up Michaela.
Thank you. I think that science and math and technology and engineering, it's kind of just like a way of thinking. Apart from like I think that English and history, if you're talking about like school subjects, is those people have a similar way of thinking, whereas STEM people have a similar way of thinking. And I think just carrying that through the rest of your life is really important.
Awesome. Michaela, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I'd say it just really helped me like work as a team and share my thoughts on whatever it is in a different way than I would in English or history or something like that.
So teamwork, actually, I'm just going to evolve that question a little bit more too. So how often do you guys find yourselves working in teams as opposed to just by yourself or collaborating with another person?
This year, I feel like teamwork definitely has played a big part in science with what I've been doing, because we've had a bunch of different lab activities and stuff where we have to look over microscopes and draw things with partners. And I think it's really good to just help and learn different ways that each person that you're working with learns and how they can learn differently from you.
That's hugely important. Anyone else have something to say about that? Teams, what's it like to collaborate? Callie, you're going to be on the Great British Baking Show and you won't collaborate, but I know you're going to win it someday. The Great American Baking Show.
I think with
Michaela, what do you think?
Well, it's just really helped, like when I have a problem and I have no idea how to solve it, it's so nice to talk with another person who's coming from a different perspective on how to approach the problem and solve it. So that's really helped this year.
That's awesome. Like sometimes you're too close to it, so you have to kind of take a breath. So I think we've got a little bit of time here. I'm going to open our little panel up to everyone on the call just for a second. We have a couple minutes. Does anybody have a question that they would like to ask the students in particular? And before that happens really quick, I'm just going to go Cole, Michaela, Tavis, Callie, Eliana. Could you just say what grade you're in? Because I think we missed that part. So let's do that first. Cole, what grade are you in?
I'm in 7th grade.
Great. Michaela?
I'm a freshman in high school, so 9th.
Tavis?
I'm in 7th grade too.
Awesome. Callie?
I'm a senior.
Awesome. And Eliana?
I'm a 7th grader too.
Awesome. I like this 7th grader twos. This is great. You guys should start a band called the 7th grader twos. All right. So any questions from the 45 people on this call? Anybody? Does Cove Jasmine have a question? I get to pick on Cove because I work with him. Cove, do you have any questions working with young people? So Cove is actually our Ravalli County program director, and he's also our music production instructor. And so he works with young people all the time. And so what do you think of this panel? Like, give them, what would you ask of them?
Can I get a job for when I like later in my life? Can you hire me? That'd be awesome. If any of you are looking for administrative work or a theme song. Anyway, nice to meet all of you. This is great. This is an awesome panel. A question for you. Let's see. Do you think that because of the mentors that you've had in your experience growing up and learning about STEAM and STEM, do you think that you will continue on that path and try to mentor people in your life?
Absolutely. This weekend we were actually going to go look at a college down in Butte, but now there's a blizzard there, so we can't go. But I'm really excited to go into that field and learn even more in college.
That is an awesome answer, and also a very Montana answer. We were going to go look at a college in almost May, but there's a blizzard. Awesome. Callie, you unmuted. What do you think?
So I think that throughout like even my elementary and high school, I've had a lot of people and like teachers that have really helped me be more interested in STEM. And just like if I had a question, they would answer it. And if they didn't know the answers, they would look it up. I know we always ask some pretty funny questions at the youth center with Bethany, and she always helped us out. But I'm actually going to Rocky next fall to be a athletic trainer. So I think that I would like to also like be a science teacher or something and help children become more interested in science that way.
That is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Well, I just looked into the chat and we've got an explosion of questions for you guys. Some people have put some awesome resources in there. I'm going to take one question out of here and then we may move on to the next section. So I think this is a really good one, but who is your favorite like STEM role model and why? Artists count too. Anyone? Bueller?
I'd say, and she's not anyone famous, but Marianne Smith, who founded Co-Girls United, has just taken, she never thought she'd be in any kind of thing, starting a program, nonprofit for girls, and she's just exceeded beyond our expectations, and she's really made it an amazing opportunity for younger girls especially to get into that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Any other heroes or role models? Maybe someone on this call? It could be me. It could be me after the session. Let's just say it's me after the session. Just kidding. You can tell I'm in marketing and PR. Do you guys have any closing statements? Anybody have anything that they want to say before we move on from this section of this awesome presentation?
Could you tell us about what STEM's about? Because this is what the first I've heard about STEM when I got offered to do this, so I don't really know what's it about.
Absolutely. So I can answer that question. Would someone else on the call like to answer that question? Is there someone from the audience who has a need to speak up? I know that I know 7 of you on the call that could speak to STEM very well. All right.
I'll go ahead.
Here we go. Oh, go ahead, Stephanie. There we go.
Hey, is it Tavis? Is that how you say your name? Tavis?
It's Tavis.
Tavis. Sorry about that, Tavis. So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And so those are the areas that we want to focus on in those areas because they're growing and they're in high needs. And we want to be, you know, the country that is taking over in those fields. And we also recently have added A for art, at least in the programs that I teach in the schools. So does that help answer that question? Awesome.
Thank you, Stephanie. We're in A for art as well. So we're a STEAmer. So there's STEM and STEAM. You may hear both of those, but so STEAM is STEM with art inserted into that. And that can be various kinds of art. Like we do media art. So that's one of the options there. Wonderful. Well, I just have to say you guys are very incredible young humans. I second Cove. If you ever need employees for all of the amazing things that you're going to create and do in the future, please, please, please remember everybody on this call. And yeah, I think we're gonna pass this back on to Susie, if I'm not correct. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, I just want to say a huge thank you too. That was really awesome. Again, like I said before, it's cool for us, you know, here we are kind of sitting in our offices and thinking about what can we do to help young people, but to actually hear from young people and to hear from Trishina, it really motivates me and inspires me to think about, wow, what else can we do, or what can we keep doing that is really working? Who else can we bring to the table? So thank you so much. That was really awesome. And if you ever want to become MSU Bobcats, look me up. I know there are other universities out there in Montana and beyond, but we'd love to have you for sure at MSU. So I think Rachel next is going to share with us about the breakout sessions. I do hope everybody is able to stay. If you need to go have a break, that's totally cool. We'll still be able to pop you into a breakout room, but this is the fun part where we get to meet one another and talk about what happens next. And thank you, Jana, for your moderation. That was awesome.
Thank you all for joining that panel. It was really important for us to get to hear what current students care about. And so even if you think about things later on, please let us know. I think all of you did such a great job, and I totally echo what everybody else said before, that you're all just really inspiring, and it's exciting to see what cool folks out there are learning and going to be able to do going forward. But just also to kind of talk again about the STEM and the STEAM. I'm pretty sure that next year we will be changing it to a STEAM summit. Including the arts is a really important thing, and that's actually something we want to talk about in the breakout session. But kind of, Tavis, just to answer your question a little bit more, STEAM is just kind of a creative acronym for all of us to remember the subjects that we really want to focus on and get better resources to our schools and our after school programs and our kids ultimately, so that our kids can go into these fields with better resources than maybe we had when we were kids, and just so that they can keep being excited and engaged in these subjects. We are now going to put you all in breakout rooms, and we are going to have those breakout rooms moderated. We do hope that you stay for as much of this breakout session as you can and try to answer these questions for us, give us some new ideas about what we can do going forward, and hopefully make some different connections together, and maybe even some partnerships can come out of this so that programs can work together on some of these projects, and also some of the, finding ways to get more kids access to STEAM. So I'm going to try to do the technology now, send you into breakout rooms. I'm going to randomly assign you, so hopefully you're not with your other partners if you're on here with partners, and get to meet some new folks. If you're having trouble, chat us. There will be somebody kind of hanging back to make sure that people can be admitted or readmitted if something happens. So bear with me as I get this done.
If anybody's in the breakout room nodding, I'm not seeing them. So we're down to the last half hour of our meeting. I really enjoyed the breakout room. It was fun to meet some new people and see some old friends and colleagues. I hope you felt the same too. So what we're going to do just in this last little bit, there's not a ton of time for it, but we'll go around to each of those breakout rooms and hear kind of what you discussed. What were some key points that came out? Maybe if you want to focus on those action items, I think that will be really relevant. And what we'll do, we'll go in alphabetical order by the first name of the moderators. If when we come to you, Chris, you're first. If you have somebody else in your room who's actually doing the report out, that's fine. Or if you want to do it too, we'll maybe do about probably just 3 minutes or so for each breakout room if you want to share a key thing that you discussed in your room. So our order will be Chris, Eric, Jana, Leah. So let's start with Chris.
Not Jana. Jana got the boot.
Oh, Jana got the boot. Did we have a different moderator, and does their name begin
Nope,
with Z?
they just took all my people away.
Okay, so we'll go Chris, Eric, Leah. Awesome. Over to you, Chris.
Excellent. Yeah, so my group, we had such a robust conversation that we didn't even assign somebody to report out. So my group, I'm going to try to report out real quickly. If you all feel like I missed a big takeaway, please jump in. But as far as the takeaway action items, which kind of resonated a couple and came up throughout, is broader coordination efforts are needed. And I think that's across the state of Montana. So that came up a few times and was seconded a couple times as well throughout various questions. Another thing that came up, this was me asking the group, but no one was aware of it, and it may or may not be helpful, is some sort of asset map or STEM asset map for the partners within Montana. So the after school programs, the STEM providers or curriculum folks, the PD folks, the science centers and children's museums, all the different parts of that whole ecosystem. Is that something that already exists? And if it does, how can it get out there to more folks? And if it doesn't, maybe it's something that could be created. So I think those are the two main ones that I wanted to touch on, but Sonia, or any others in my group, if you have anything else out there, a few seconds to jump in. But I'll turn it back to you, Susie.
All right, I'm just going to flip straight to Eric. That's the group that I was in, so I'm going to let you, Eric, report out or pick somebody from our group, but not me.
Well, I think we said Michelle was going to, or you said, or Michelle volunteered from OPI to share a little bit, summarize what was on our Jamboard and some of the action items and ideas. So I'll throw it to Michelle.
We had a really great discussion, but the Jamboard really got the hits when we were talking about who's missing at the table. So I'll just read some of the ones that are on here. We should have at the table and club societies like engineering, data collection, technology businesses, include college level clubs and societies, more programs to reach Indigenous students living on the reservation throughout Montana, a roadmap or priorities moving forward, what people can focus on that came out of the STEM Summit. I think that was probably you, Susie. I don't know, was it? Okay. A statewide list of resources for funding and mentors, collaboration between curricular, classroom, and extracurricular after-school activities, and how would a new after-school mentor know what resources are available? I skipped mine because I kind of was verbose.
Thanks, Michelle. And actually, I don't want to put Julie on the spot, but Julie, I thought it was really cool that you were here representing as a parent who does some STEM programming and is interested in that perspective. I thought you had some interesting ideas from that perspective. So can I put you on the spot and maybe share a little bit of with everybody of what we talked about in our group? Is that cool?
Sure.
Okay.
I guess some of my thoughts were trying to understand, my son's on a robotics team through the FIRST organization, and we'd like to grow the organization across the state, but I think there's some just disconnect on funding and finding mentors. And so I think that part, Susie, was there something else that we talked about? I think I can't remember exactly what else.
Yeah, I'm writing notes in 3 different places here. I think you had talked about mentors, and then the challenge of finding funding for such a small local group like yours. Maybe just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, on that one, I was curious if some of this federal funding or statewide funding that might be available, if there were ways that could be further passed down or offered as grants to small organizations in small towns across the state, or small clubs that don't have the resources to do the grant writing or searching for those funds individually.
Can anyone answer that question or have a thought on that? That would be awesome.
That might be a good question to kind of email out in like a follow-up to everybody. Because I like off the top of my head, I can think of a couple, but to get the actual resources and stuff, I'd love to, have that and then share it out as a broader resource. That'd be great.
Cool. Okay, well, let's let's head over to Leah's group. And again, Leah, if you want to report out or if you want to call on somebody from your group, we are doing okay on time. I had said 2 to 3 minutes, but if you have a couple things, you can take longer than 2 to 3 minutes. We just have to wrap up by 3:30.
Yeah, so I promised the members of my group that no one would have to share out. So I'll be happy to take that one for everyone. Though if anyone wants to jump in, you are obviously more than welcome to. But one of the benefits of going last is that I think our group talked about a lot of similar things to the other groups. I really love the idea that Chris talked about a bit of a community asset map. We talked about a similar resource that would be helpful across the board, whether that's of specifically like grad students doing site-specific research across the state of Montana and mapping where their projects aligned with schools to connect students to researchers who are already in their communities but not making those connections to local schools and programs, or again having the map right overlaid with after school programs. So if those students are just interested in connecting with schools. They're not making a cold call to a school district and having the fear that no one will respond. So that's, I'd say, one of the major takeaways that we had as well. And stated in a more concise way, our action item was to find more ways to connect. And I think that connection was really the theme of our conversation. How do you connect students to resources? How do you connect teachers to training? How do you connect students to STEM professionals? All of those things that we basically were like, it would be great if there were ways to do this that were in place and understood and recognized by the community, by students, by parents, so that those connections could be long lasting and not necessarily just one-off STEM opportunities for students. My group, does anyone else have anything they want to add or share that they feel like I didn't reflect?
I think you nailed it.
Thank you, Cove.
Chris, I feel like I made you go really fast. I'm gonna circle back to group C for Chris. Was there anything else that you talked about in your group that I made you condense into 2 minutes? And now if I gave you 2 more minutes,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you didn't get a chance to tell everybody about?
I'm looking at my my Jamboard. I'm just gonna like pick a few things here. Question around, we got to a few of the questions, maybe like 4 or 5. Who else should be at the table? A couple of names or a couple of groups, parents, funders, whether that's like the government folks, whether that's, you know, congressional members or the state education agencies or DPI, or it's the Department of Education at the federal level, or it's industry partners, right? So some of those people that have a stake in the development of the local workforce, like they should be at the table, right? Getting them there is a different question, or maybe an answer. So that was for the folks that aren't at the table. And then we did the magic wand question. So what could you, if resources were unlimited, what could you provide? One that came up multiple times was time for staff to actually get PD, and that's paid time for staff to get professional development. So they can come together as groups, as educators, they can learn, they can also plan. That's something that, you know, whether that's the certified teachers during the school day or the after school educators, no one really has enough time to plan and really get the proper professional development. So that's one that I think was a big takeaway that is something that I've heard throughout my years in like the after school space. You need more?
No, I'm actually really glad that you talked about that question. In fact, we had kind of just started to touch on that in our group, but I think, if I may, why don't we use the chat? And I would love to ask everybody, if you were in Chris's group, you can type what you typed then. I love the magic wand phrasing. So basically, if you had a magic wand and you suddenly got what you need the most to do the work that you do, what would that be? And let's just use the chat. Let's see. If you got a big influx of resources that could help you do a better job, what would that be? And Rachel, I don't know, are you in a position where you might be able to help read what you see in the chat?
Yes, I can.
I'm going to put my wish list in here too.
Susie says, great people to travel the state. The ability to let people know who does what well across the state. So big brand marketing. Staff wages would be higher, additional STEM offerings, more specialty STEM offerings for K through 12. Right now, my greatest need is staffing and to get staff who would be good to work with kids. If I had an influx of resources, I would create a cohort of teachers to work with after-school programs, environmental programs, and organizations such as yourselves to partner in developing rich learning for students that is engaging. I would then continue these 2-year cohorts until all teachers were connected. Another person, well-trained substitute teachers for school and after-school programs. And I'm not going to type mine in, but I'd like to see a better coordination between school and after school programs, and also kind of more of an understanding of what each can offer and how it can be a little more seamless for some of our kids.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for sharing those thoughts. I think it was on our second loop around before we wrap up, and I had stopped at Chris. Eric, is there anything from our group that we didn't get a chance to talk about, or anybody else in our group that we want to share with everybody?
I think Michelle and you and Julia did a good job of covering it all. I think in particular, again, what jumped out for me was the conversation around additional partners bringing to the table. And Michelle mentioned them, they're on the JAM board, but from employers to community colleges, we talked about, to rural programs, smaller programs. There was a conversation around making sure the eastern part of the state is well represented, in addition to the western part where a lot of the resources tend to be. Really rich conversation. Thank you all for participating in it.
Great. And I was just looking back at my notes from this session too. Trishina had mentioned a couple specific teachers, I think at Lodge Grass High School. It sounds like Trishina knows some folks who would love to connect with STEM resources. She mentioned Gear Up coordinators at schools, which that's a great opportunity too. And she put in a plug for the Space Public Outreach team. Trishina, I don't know, are you still, I can't see everybody who's here, but would you be able to give a quick plug for what the Space Public Outreach team does so people know what's possible?
Sure. So I work for the Space Public Outreach team, and our whole goal is to do outreach and inspire K through 12 kids to pursue STEM fields through our NASA presentation about current NASA research and what's happening in space. And so our goal is to actually try to target more rural communities. And so this is my last semester, but I'll still be here, and I can help connect people to the next Space Public Outreach team manager. Such a very, very great experience, and it's a good program that does try to do outreach. So.
And I'm correct that the team actually travels to the community, right? So
correct. So I try to train undergraduates and graduate students, and we teach them how to give presentations, and we pay for their time for working with us. And we provide money for travel and even overnight stay for these students.
Cool. All right. Well, I hope you recruit somebody amazing to fill your shoes. Okay, and Leah, I just wanted to come back to your group and see if there's anything you didn't get a chance to share out the first time around.
At this point, I'm looking to my group. Anything else? No, I think we kind of covered it, Susie.
All right, awesome. And we will be able to share those jam boards. If people were taking notes, I have a rough Word doc that I'm going to synthesize with some other stuff. If anybody has notes or other artifacts to share back, we sure would appreciate it, because then we'll share those all out with the group. So I think we're in our wrap up time here. I'm going to turn it back to Rachel for some of our final stuff. And thank you all for being here. It was great to hang out with you today.
Thank you all really for being here, and for those of you who were able to stay on so much longer and be willing to engage in these conversations. It just is so important to all of us to realize who's out there. It's been a funny couple of years, and we've kind of forgotten some of our connections, but it's a really great time to renew those connections. And I really want to thank again everyone who helped make this happen. The Science Math Resource Center, the Afterschool Alliance, MAPS, and then all of our sponsors again. Also, I want to thank we had a representative from both Senator Dane's office stay the whole time, and someone from Senator Tester's office. She's still there, so she's been able to sit in this time as well. Both of those offices for getting us videos from our leaders. It's just really important that we're staying connected to them. So I want to thank them for that work that they do for us, but also encourage all of us to continue reaching out to them so that they know what's important to us on the ground. And the other thing about this is that we are really excited at the Montana After School Alliance. We're going to be hiring a new STEM lead. And this is with our Million Girls Moonshot initiative funding. And that funding really is to get out STEM across the state, especially to underserved communities, girls and minorities who have not been getting engaged in STEM. But this STEM lead position will be able to go out to different programs and sort of create some collaboration between you all, and also be sort of that person who can come in and provide professional development on site so that you don't necessarily have to travel as far, to make it a little easier on some of your programs. But that also, for those of you who are not after school, there's definitely areas for collaboration. So I put in the chat our website. If you're at all interested or know someone who would be a good fit for that position, it's all on the website. But also, if you want to go to our website and check out some of the STEM resources we do have a STEM resource database. It is a great resource right now, but again, that position will be revamping it and trying to maybe make it a little bit more in line with what Chris's group was discussing. If you have any questions, right now is a great time to ask them, or you can email myself or Susie follow up. We will be sending out sort of one more survey to all of you who participated to try and, recapture some thoughts or get some more ideas if as the day went on, you think about more things. The other thanks I want to offer is to Trishina and our youth panel for really just like making it so much more worthwhile that we all gathered today. They did a really great job and were very inspiring. So thank you all. Any last questions? Oh, Susie, you have your hand raised. Is that a clap or okay. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for your time today. It means so much that you engaged with us, and please reach out to us if you have anything or any questions at all. Take care and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.